Hello everyone, drive-by back to explain some fundamental aspects of World of Warcraft. The next one is going to be the edit mode. Keep in mind I'm a PvP oriented player and most of my settings are going to be oriented in that direction. So when I think of the UI, I think of it as cleanly as I can make it for PvP scenarios, right? So let's get right into it. The first thing we're going to have to do is get into edit mode. In order to get into edit mode, you must have at least one character level 10 and we hit escape and we click edit mode. Alternatively, we could hit the menu underneath our bags and bring it up again and hit edit mode. Right now it's put me on this default one called modern. We're going to get away from that and we're going to go to the layout drop down, and we're going to make a new layout. Boom. So this is how we do like profiles, different ones, different setups for each character. Sometimes when I'm going into a battleground, I'll change this versus how I'll have it in an arena, right? It just depends. Obviously, one has more is more intimate than the other, right? So let's go in here and let's do test for Druid, and we have character specific layout. This will only be for my Druid if I click this. So let's do that. Oh, it's already in use. We'll do 1. There we go. Save. All right. Grid spacing. Grid spacing is how far and how wide these tiles are in the background are going to be for snapping. So snap to functions so that you can keep your UI kind of clean and level, right? So if I make this wider and I keep the snap function on, it will snap to the box, whether it's high or low, whichever side I'm favoring. So if I put it right here, it'll snap. See how that top left corner is in the middle of the box? It'll snap to that, so it'll snap to the middle. So really it just is a way to keep your things in line. I use the smallest one because I feel like it's not too small and it's pretty easy to control. You could do it without. It's just your stuff is going to be a little bit off center. I think that there's no reason not to use the grid and snap to grid. For this, we're going to enable everything just so we know what everything does. I can't do the loop window for some reason. Doesn't matter. All right, we're going to move this out of the way. We're going to take it and we're going to put it over here on the left, and we're going to deal with these as they come down. The first one we come to looks like the cast bar, right? So you could lock the cast bar to player frame, but that's not what you want to do. You want to be able to see your cast bar at all times. If you can see my character kind of behind all these things, I like my cast bar, and I think most players do, right underneath my character. It's a pretty good spot. That way when I'm casting, I can cancel my cast to fake people that are on me because, kicking and interrupting your cast, which we'll get into. It's just a good way to monitor your cast bar. So let's set that there and move on to the next one. And this is your encounter bar. It's actually has nothing to do with PvP. You can put it like somewhere down here, but I think I keep mine like up here because it's never had an effect in PvP. And if I wanted to do PvE, I would make a different profile that involves that being in a better spot, right? And then before PvP, PvE, I'll switch it to that. That's the beautiful thing is before you're about to do an activity, you can change everything you have for that specific activity. Don't get lazy, right? Have a button you click that puts it in that scenario, right? So I'm going to put it up there because it's not important to me right now. Let's keep going down. Talking heads. Talking heads is like when you're in a dungeon and there's somebody telling a story or like lore and you see their head. It's not important to me. I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it up here. Bear with me. I'm going to put it up here and I'm going to mess with the buffs in just a minute. Next, I see this one over top of my cast bar, and it's the extra abilities. Typically, that's like the things when you're in a zone and they give you like something special. That's where you'll see extra abilities. I'm going to take extra abilities, and I'm going to put it up here. But know that some brawls and some like big battlegrounds might have some extra abilities in them, and you might want to move that lower. But for right now, I just get it out of the way so that I can see a little easier when I'm messing with my edit mode. That's how low priority it is. I just want to get it out of the way. I always move it somewhere else. Plus, if I did get in a scenario where I had this UI up, I just click up here. Usually the extra abilities, you don't spam them. They're usually a one-time click. Or you could even put a keybind on it as well. Right. So let's keep going. These are action bars. I'm actually going to start with the main action bar all the way at the bottom so I can show you a couple things. Every time you click one of these tiles, it comes up with another bar, right? Another little option, right? A setting thing. This one doesn't really have any for encounter. My encounter bar doesn't really have any, so I didn't really discuss it. But these action bars do, and I suggest you start with the main one, the one that's 1 through equal, right, or 1 through 12, or whatever you want to call it, right? The first thing you want to do is you want to hide the scroll bar, because we will not be scrolling through one action bar in a fight. We will not be doing that. So get rid of it so you don't accidentally click it, so it's less crap on your screen. Next, bar art. We do not need these little dragons. They are just extra things on your screen, and you need to think like that. Get rid of it. It's not important, right? You could move your bars around any way you want, right? I can do stacked like that. I could do less icons, right? I could change the orientation to vertical, which I actually do, sometimes. Keep it horizontal. We can make them space out a little bit more. I don't know why you would want to. Keep them tight. If anything, make them a little smaller so they take up less space. I don't need to see them like that. And then I pretty much always keep 12 icons because, and I'll move on to the next bar so you can see, because the other bars have an option to always show buttons. So if I don't use, let's say, this button right here, or the last one, I only have 12 abilities on it, I can do always show buttons, uncheck that, and it'll hide all the ones that don't have an ability in it. So that's really nice. Okay. Whatever. Okay. What's happening? There we go. Oh, everything's got to be a pain in the butt. All right, doesn't matter. All right, so that's this, and that's this. How you organize your bars is really important. So we're going to get into key bindings, and we're going to put abilities on our bars. But right now, I want you to understand that some, and this is critical, some abilities do not need to be watched. You do not need to see Wrath at all times, right? So what I do is I take these bars, right, here we go, and I lay them underneath my character, and I'm just going to move these out of the way, underneath my character, and I put major cooldowns on them. Major cooldowns, right? So I'm going to have defensive cooldowns and offensive cooldowns on these bars. I'm not going to have anything on these bars that's not cooldown. And I don't need anything binded on these bars. I just need them for information, right? Then I'm going to take all these other bars. Let's make them a little smaller. Right? And I'm going to put all my abilities on these bars. Everything, including the ones that are also going to be up here. And I'm going to know where they are without clicking them. How I suggest you do this is you need to constantly use your abilities, walk around, spam your cooldowns, make sure that you know where they are without thinking. And it's really easy to do, but people just stand in town and wait for cues. When in reality, you could be getting repetition on your buttons. When you want to bark skin in your head, you need to be able to hit bark spin without looking at your action bars. This is really, really important. Once you can get that, you can hide these action bars and just keep your cooldowns here. It is way superior to having 45 icons on your screen. It is way superior. I'll show you an example of it so you can kind of see. But and if you watched my original settings video, you kind of saw the same example of it. I think it's optimal. So that's how I deal with my action bars, and it's probably the biggest thing. Next is your stance bar. Typically, I put my stance bar. It's gonna be like for a warrior, defensive stance. For a paladin, it'll be like his auras. Stealth will go under here. I put my stance bar right under here. Sometimes you're in a big fight and you're a rogue and you want to know if you were able to get that stealth off or something like that and you can't see or something. It's nice to just be able to look at this. Or you're a warrior and you're like, man, I want to check my stance real quick. it's faster to look here than it is to check your buffs, right? So stance bar is pretty strong. Hopefully you know when you're stealth or not, but that's just an example, right? I'm just going to take this over to the side right now, and I'll take these other two, and I'm just going to put them over here for just a minute. In fact, if I want, I'll just make them small so they're not in the way. Boom, 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 boom. So look, I would use these bars, but I don't have any abilities on. This is a just started character, right? So I'll show some pictures of how we would use the bars, but this is how I'd set them up, and that's the general concept. Exit vehicle, I'll just put it right there. Pet bar, I usually put right under stance bar, right? Possess bar, that's going to be like if you're in a vehicle, like the actions you can take in them. So I'll put the possess bar like up here, right? Most of the abilities will show up on your action bar, and that won't be a problem. But when I play with a vehicle map like Winter, Spring, Grass, I will always have the main action bar visible. You cannot hide this main action bar. So when I hide this and I hide this, right, I just make this really small, and I put it over here. And it's a good reference if I'm in a vehicle I'm not familiar with. I can just be like, oh, there's only 4 abilities. Oh, it's the throwing the thing or putting poison down or yada, yada, yada. So that's that. Let's keep going. Next is my player frame. You can put the cast bar underneath of it, but I like it under my characters. So there's nothing really to change in here. You can make it bigger, but I think it's plenty big enough. And personally, I don't keep it on my screen like real close. Some people do, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it because you can track the buffs above their head, and you could, in theory, put your target right beside it and track the buffs above their head. I don't use them because I have add-ons that do otherwise, but if you were going to, I would suggest you put them in a decent spot, somewhere like this, where you can track them, leave enough space above their head for buffs. So let's put buffs on top, and yeah, it's going to put his buffs on top too. So there's enough space here for the buffs. Nice. And you want to be able to look at them. This is, if you were paying attention to the other video, my focus frame. You can leave the focus frame over here. I actually put it up here in the middle. And make it a little bigger so I can see it. And this is not my target, but my extra target that I track. So that's how I'll look at that. Next. Let's move this out of the way because we'll deal with the left side first. And we're going to deal with quite possibly the most important stuff. And shoot, it's this one, party frames. We need to use, and this is critical, and this is why you're watching this video, we need to use raid style frames. And not just like this. We need to use raid style frames with max width, max height. The only time we're going to go smaller, and this is mostly for arenas, is if we're in a battleground. We might do smaller frames, a little bit smaller, but in all honesty, I don't. Rated battlegrounds are 10, it takes up this much space, it's really not that bad. So the next thing you're going to want to consider is how close you put it to you. If you put it way over here, it's really out of reach. Your eyes have to move from the fight to the frames, so I typically keep them right about here. Okay? Next, these are your raid frames, right? Same thing, make them big, have them here. When it converts to a raid, boom, you got them. You can move them closer. Actually, I think this is where RBGs would go, but regardless, I still always use big frames. If you were going to make these smaller, fine, you could. You need to display border if you want. I don't, just more space on your screen. Perfect. If you do PvP, rarely will you be above 10 unless you're doing a battleground, in which case you'll just use this, and I would just make it smaller if there's 15 on your team. Alrighty. Oh, sorry, what to do. We'll move this over here and we'll start dealing with our buffs. Well, actually, we're going to start from the bottom here. This is the tooltip. Like when I hover over something, where does it show up? I typically put it somewhere around here because I like to see it. Quests. Quests when you do PvP are not important at all, and I actually use an add-on that hides it. But I think a good spot to put quests is probably right about where it is, somewhere down here. Just make the height a little bit smaller. Nice. And keep it somewhere out of the way. Somewhere right about here is plenty good. Boss frames. I don't use boss frames because I do not do battlegrounds. I mean, I do not do dungeons. So we'll keep the boss frames down low, somewhere like this out of the way. It's never really going to light up for you, so you don't really have to worry about it. Arena frames. If you were going to use default arena frames, you probably want to put them really close. And you don't need 5 because we don't have 5v5 anymore. So you just need to worry about the top 3. Somewhere about here is pretty good. You could put them somewhere like up here. I think that's a little too aggressive. But honestly, we're going to use S Arena or Gladiator X or Gladius X, whatever it's called, and it's going to do the same thing but more. So we're going to take this, for me personally, and I'm going to put it down here. But you, if you're just going to rely on this, can put it right here. I'm going to put it down here. And this is something I do different than everybody else. Let's get the talking head one out of the way. Your buffs and your debuffs. Let's get these, put this talking head back. Your buffs. I like them vertically aligned. This is just my buffs, and I like them running down the side. My debuffs. I like my debuffs vertically aligned, and I like them right beside them. Rarely do they get this close. Rarely. Most of the time, it's just down here. I'm going to actually make it a little bit longer if I want. Actually, make it longer than that. We can make it go all the way down the side, all the way to our abilities, all the way down. And if it reaches over here, it's going to have to go all the way down before it's an effect on this. Same with this. We'll make it super long, go all the way down. I like it. I like seeing them in a line. I like looking over here if I'm looking for something specific. All the things that I want to track, I'm going to be able to track with add-ons on my main screen. But if there's something real specific I'm looking for, I can always look over here and find it pretty easily. I feel like up here is real estate for me to keep. I feel like that's far away to look. It's kind of awkward, and I have an easier time looking like to the right and looking right here. So personal preference, right? But I really like that. Next is this Minimap. Bear with me. I put it down here. I really like to use another map. Let me show you. Let's save this. And you, if you haven't seen this, you're gonna really like it. I'm gonna hit Shift M is the default. If you've changed it, then you're gonna have to go look it up. It's let me do it. It's a mini map, right? And look, you see it down here. Hold on. In order to get to it, you have to. You have to hover until you can get this zone map thing to align, then you right click it. And then we're going to change opacity. So there we go. And then we are going to show teammates, and we're going to drag it up here. Why? Why this over the minimap? Because when you are in a battleground, you want to know where your teammates are at, and you don't want to have to open your map. And I think down here it's a little awkward. I think up here in place of the minimap, it's better. Actually, the minimap doesn't really do all that much for you that this does better. Minimap's not bad, and I still have it on my screen, right? I still have it down here, but I really like this map up here. And let's have a look, see how our edit mode turned out. Perfect, it's right under our stuff. So let's get it in line, and then let's right click and lock it. So now I have this map up here, and for battlegrounds, this map is superior. I still like having a mini map. And then because I put my mini map down here, I kind of screwed myself on my chat bars. So let's go to edit mode. And I really like my chat bar. I like it up here. I think it's nice. But you could always just move this over and put it back down here. And boom. Yeah, mini map there if you like. But experiment with it up here. It's really not that bad. Hey, I'm going back and I'm adding a couple things to the video. I meant to point out that you can also share a specific layout that you're on or profile by clicking share, copy to clipboard, and then it's Control plus V to paste something. So if we came in here and we imported that same one we just copied, we hit Control V, right? And we could name it test for DK, right? We can make it character specific. We click import, and now we have two. We have the one I was using, and we have this new one. So in order to delete an old one, you can't be I guess you can be using it, but it's a little X or a little circle with a line through it beside it, and then you could also rename them, right? Or copy the layout from the specific one there, right? So just keep that in mind. I'm going to delete this old one, just like that, for example. I think that we've just about covered everything. I can't see anything else we really need to work with. You can't move any of the bags or any of the settings in the bottom. You can't move the experience bar. But right now we have the concept of putting our main cooldowns right underneath of us. The idea of hiding all of our abilities, right? Keeping our frames close to us, both party and enemy frames, and even focus frames. Getting the PvE stuff out of the way. Making the buffs and debuffs maybe a little bit more accessible. Really talk about the value of the smaller world map versus the value of the mini map. I moved my chat up to the left. It doesn't really matter where you put it, but I moved it up to the left. I thought it was a little nicer. It's a personal preference. And just a general understanding of where all your things should be, like the cast bar, right? So I hope this video helps you out. I know it was a little long-winded, but I appreciate you taking the time to go through it, and we will get into more fun things later, but right now we have to cover the basics. So thanks for tuning in. Like, follow, subscribe, comment, whatever you can do. If there's something you think I should change, put it in the comments, because I'm new to this. Eventually I'm going to have to come back through and redo these. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good one.